Tonight, Senator Bernie Sanders is out.
I have concluded that this battle for the Democratic nomination will not be successful.
What today's announcement means for the Biden campaign and the 2020 presidential election. And as leaders in Congress push for more funding and emergency aid,
we're doing a large amount of testing now, so we integrate all of that data.
The federal government learns more about the COVID-19 crisis in America, with the CDC weighing new guidelines for those exposed to the virus. Plus,
as you start out, set some expectations. Call a family meeting.
How parents can set their kids up for success as millions of students stay home for school. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The 2020 Democratic presidential field clears to just one. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, the one-time frontrunner in a field of more than 24 candidates, officially suspends his campaign for the Democratic nomination, leaving former Vice President Joe Biden as the last candidate standing. With me now is Chief Political Analyst David Brody to explain what this means for the campaign going forward. But we begin tonight with White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Ben, how much of a surprise was today's announcement?
Well, John, to be honest, the numbers were just not there for Sanders. Sanders says he did not make this choice lightly. It was a very difficult and painful decision, adding that although his campaign is over, his movement is not.
I wish I could give you better news, but I think you know the truth. And that is that we are now some 300 delegates behind Vice President Biden, and the path toward victory is virtually impossible. So while we are winning the ideological battle, and while we are winning the support of so many young people and working people throughout the country, I have concluded that this battle for the Democratic nomination will not be successful.
Sanders stepping down pretty much clears the way for former Vice President Joe Biden to be the Democratic nominee and then face President Trump in November. Biden's called Sanders a good guy and then tweeted a message directly towards Sanders supporters saying, "I know that I need to earn your votes and I know that it might take time, but I want you to know that I see you, I hear you, and I understand the urgency of this movement. I hope you'll join us. You're more than welcome. You're needed." And I'm sure we'll hear more from both Biden and Sanders in the coming days. John?
Ben, President Trump was quick to respond on Twitter. What did he say?
Yeah, John, not a surprise there. President Trump was very fast to respond once he heard word that Sanders did drop out. He tweeted that if not for Elizabeth Warren, Bernie would have won almost every state on Super Tuesday. This ended just like the Democrats and DNC wanted, same as the crooked Hillary fiasco. The Bernie people should come to the Republican Party, trade. Now, Sanders pushed back at President Trump, calling him the most dangerous president in modern American history. And John, I'm sure you remember early on in this Democratic election, Sanders was clearly the frontrunner after winning New Hampshire, and then he took a very big hit on Super Tuesday.
My, how things have turned. White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Thanks, Ben. Well, let's turn to David. David, Wisconsin held its primary yesterday. We won't have the final tally for a couple of days. Why now? Why was Wisconsin Bernie Sanders' last stand?
Well, I think Bernie Sanders' last stand was about 3 primaries ago. And honestly, his last stand, in a way, wasn't even Super Tuesday because the wheels came off, John, in South Carolina. That's where it all unraveled. Why? Not only did Joe Biden score a victory, he scored a big victory. And on top of that, it showed that Bernie Sanders had a hard time attracting African-American votes. And I think that was, in essence, the downfall of his campaign. He did very well with Hispanic votes, Hispanics on the rise within the electorate. But African-Americans are kind of the Democrats' bread and butter, if you will, in terms of winning elections. And if you can't get them, you've got some electoral problems.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. He said the future of our country rests with young people, but young people didn't seem to turn out for Bernie Sanders. David, Sanders said he plans to keep collecting delegates in the remaining primary state races. What's he gaming here?
Well, collecting delegates is a code for trying to collect some influence along the way and affect that Democratic platform come August or whenever they have the virtual convention or whatever it is or whatever it's going to end up to be. I mean, that's what it really is. In other words, he wants to say, look, I don't just have 300 delegates, I have 400 or 500, 600 delegates, and that gives me a little bit more oomph at the table when they're coming up with the platform for the Democratic Party.
So, David, the stage is now set for a two-way race. What does this mean for President Trump?
Well, I think it's not actually good news for the president, and there's a lot of reasons why, but let's just start with this. This is the main reason that Donald Trump wanted Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden to fight it out for quite a long time, and that's not going to happen. Remember the protracted fight that Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders had in 2016? That was great for Donald Trump. This time around, he won't get that. Joe Biden will get the momentum, whatever that ends up being, behind him as they move to 2020. I will say this, Joe Biden is in a very, very difficult spot here, John. He has got to be progressive enough to satisfy the Bernie Sanders wing of the party. He's going to need every single one of those votes and those millennials and those Gen Zers to get out and vote in 2020. But if he goes too far to the left, to the socialist left, then he's going to mess up his base, that blue-collar, middle-class Rust Belt vote that he needs so well, so much. So it's going to be tough, a hard needle to thread.
David, a little less than a minute left here. Notably, Sanders did not offer an endorsement to Biden. What will an endorsement give to Biden when that does happen? And then, real quickly, does this mean we're now going to see former President Barack Obama getting involved in the campaign?
Right. Well, I think the endorsement as it relates to Sanders will be obviously important. That's basically Bernie saying to his Gen Zers and millennials, please go vote for Biden. But that doesn't guarantee it. So Joe Biden's got some work to do. As for President Obama, yeah, so nice that you showed up. He will show up. And it's real nice that he's chiming in now when, let me think about it, Joe Biden's the only candidate left in the race. And you can imagine what Donald Trump's going to do on that on Twitter. When Barack Obama finally comes out for Joe Biden because ... there's nobody else left. So that doesn't necessarily give Joe Biden a ringing endorsement whatsoever.
All right. David's going to be sticking around to discuss more in the show later. Thanks, David.
You bet.
Well, turning now to the coronavirus outbreak in America. Today marked the deadliest day of the pandemic so far, with more than 1,900 reported deaths. Still, experts remain hopeful the tide could soon turn. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson is here now with the latest on how to contain the outbreak. Abigail?
That's right, John. New York appears to be seeing the peak of the virus, and while Governor Andrew Cuomo says that's good news, it comes with a terrible reality.
That's what we're seeing. Hospitalizations drop and the death toll rises.
779 people passed away in New York alone Tuesday, the highest single-day death toll in the nation's epicenter thus far. Yet on a positive and somewhat predicted note, the curve appears to be flattening.
If the hospitalization rate keeps decreasing the way it is now, then the system should stabilize over these next couple of weeks.
Cuomo warns this glimmer of hope does not mean it's a time to get complacent.
If we continue doing what we're doing, then we believe the curve will continue to flatten.
Dr. Anthony Fauci told Fox News he agrees we could see a turnaround.
We predicted over the weekend that this would really be a bad week, and it is. It's going to be a bad week for deaths. But driving that and ahead of that is the fact that we're going to start to see the beginning of a turnaround. So we need to keep pushing on the mitigation strategies, because there's no doubt that that's having a positive impact on the dynamics of the outbreak.
While still warning, other metro areas like Baltimore, D.C., and Philadelphia are on track to be hotspots, and we're still far away from a vaccine being available.
In general, if you want to do it correctly, it generally takes about a year to a year and a half.
And in Congress, both the House and Senate plan to pass by unanimous consent this week an additional $250 billion in funds for the Small Business Paycheck Protection Program, a program that's been very, very popular, to make sure that that has proper funding as more and more people apply. Back to you, John.
All right, Abby, we know you're going to be keeping track on that. Thanks, Abby. With most in-person worship services shut down, many churches across America are finding unique ways to celebrate Easter this weekend. Still other congregations plan to meet, though. And back again for more on that is David Brody. David, what's the pushback been like for evangelical leaders who choose to keep on meeting?
Well, there's been quite a bit of pushback actually from other evangelical pastors who say, what are you doing? And we're going to talk about that in a moment with Tony Perkins, the president of the Family Research Council. He is actually holding a service with the Central Area Pastors Association, but it's not your traditional in the pews service, nothing like that. And it's not even online. It's a big drive-in service. Bring your car, come just as you are, ... in your car, to the Baton Rouge area, sunrise, or I should say 7 a.m. service on Easter. It's going to be a big one down there in Baton Rouge. So that's what they're looking forward to. But I also talked to Tony Perkins specifically about this Louisiana pastor who now has 6 misdemeanors against him because he is not obeying state authorities when it comes to holding church. Church services. He says he's going to hold them regardless. Now, this guy, Pastor Tony Spell, is an actual friend of Tony Perkins. Here's some of that story.
I've talked with him multiple times. In fact, went to see him with the sheriff and encourage him not to meet, but to explore other alternatives. In fact, I had arranged with the local Christian station if he would be willing not to meet. The Christian station agreed to air his Sunday message so that his parishioners, some of which are children, some 600 that he buses in from the inner city, that he said does not have internet. I said, well, they can have access to an FM station, and we'll air your message on the FM station if you just would not meet. And this is important. Look, I understand religious freedom, and that's one of the reasons the sheriff called me. I mean, I'm the chairman of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. I travel to some of the worst places in the world to advocate for religious freedom. What's happening in this jurisdiction is not an issue of religious persecution or restriction of religious freedom. The message is not being restricted. It's just the meeting, and it's being applied across the board. I know all of the officials involved. I've worked with them, and this is an issue of endangering the community. He's become kind of a symbol of resistance to tyrannical government. And I'm not saying that there are not places where some are taking advantage, like the mayor of New York, who said, if the synagogues didn't shut down, they would shut them down permanently. Right. Now, whether he misspoke or was overly zealous, he's never clarified to my knowledge, but that's not happening here. And if it were, believe me, I would be standing on the side of Pastor Spell. But in this case, it is not that. It is an issue of the well-being of the public.
We should point out that Pastor Spell will continue to lead services. I asked Tony Perkins about that. I said, Tony, is there any chance that he's going to give in? And Tony just shook his head and said, absolutely not. He's dug in on this. John?
All right. Thank you, David, for that report. Well, coming up, how the COVID crisis affects religious freedom around the world. Faith Nation returns after this.
Having sex before you marry is a bad idea. Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch the Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
welcome back. The grip the coronavirus holds has slowed so much in the world. One thing it hasn't stopped, pain for religious minorities bearing the brunt of the blame. Senior Washington correspondent Jennifer Wishon has more.
The U.S. Commission for International Religious Freedom is monitoring how Christians and other religious minorities are being treated during the pandemic. I'm joined by Commissioner Jim Carr, who is monitoring the situation. Jim, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jennifer. Great to be with you.
Jim, during crises like this, are religious minorities at greater risk?
I think they are, and we have several examples at the Commission of a variety of countries in the world where religious minorities have been mistreated. One of the ones that we as citizens have read a lot about is a church in South Korea called the Shincheonshi Church of Jesus. And about a month and a half ago, they had a young adherent who went to church there, not knowing anything about the virus, with a fever. Later on, they learned that she had coronavirus. And the government decided, after finding 10,000 of their citizens with the same virus, they attributed 5,000 of those to her. And in South Korea, Jennifer, they were very tough on this small religious group, a very private group. They were very tough on them, and they were ridiculed on social media and had a variety of problems. As a matter of fact, I read that 1.2 million people signed the petition to ban the church of Shincheonshi from the country of South Korea. Not knowing anything about the virus, they blamed that virus at the beginning on this small church.
Are you finding that as people look for someone to blame, that religious minorities are often easy scapegoats?
That's happening in several different countries. I've got examples of something similar in Cambodia and Pakistan and around the world, that religious minorities are being blamed for something they probably did not do. And even in this little community where I live, just not too far from here, there's a small church that had 25 or 30 people who I think went on a mission trip, or a couple of their members did, and they got the virus. And nobody ever thought for a minute they did this on purpose. And nobody blamed the virus in our community on them. Matter of fact, we prayed for them. And so I think it's important that we not blame small, vulnerable groups.
Mm-hmm. What is the balance between promoting and maintaining religious freedom abroad while protecting public health?
Well, where I live, they just call that common sense. And I think you have to use good common sense and make sure that you protect the citizens of the country, but also protect the rights that we were given by the United Nations in 1948 to have religious freedom everywhere in the world.
Here at home, of course, this Easter, many churches are going to be shuttered. And it's reminding me that for many Christians around the world, hiding their faith is a matter of life and death. Do you feel like this is a moment when Americans can feel a sense of solidarity with the persecuted?
I do think it is. And I think it's a time right now for Christians to let their light shine. The little children's song, "Don't hide your light under a bushel." I think it's just very important that we as Christians now let our light shine, care for the needy, care for those who have been hit by this virus. And I think it's an opportune time for us to do something magnificent right now.
Absolutely. Commissioner Carr, thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for joining us, and happy Easter.
Thank you, Jennifer. God bless you.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
if you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Welcome back. Well, for all of America's parents who've added the role of part-time homeschool teacher, some good news. If Americans remain vigilant about prevention, kids could head back to the classroom in the fall.
I fully expect, though I'm humble enough to know that I can't accurately predict, that by the time we get to the fall, that we will have this under control enough that it certainly will not be the way it is now. But it's going to be different, remember now, because this is not going to disappear. So we're going to have in place the capability of doing the things that we talk about all the time on this stage.
Certainly a lot of anxious households. Well, for now, though, many moms and dads are stepping up in ways they never imagined or planned. Heather Sells shows us how they can make sure their kids' education doesn't suffer.
Deadly virus.
President Trump's decision to extend social distancing guidelines will likely lead most states to close school through the end of this school year. States operating under stay-at-home orders have now interrupted education for at least 64,000 schools. That means for millions of public school students, they are now shifting to virtual learning. And that means their parents must oversee and even teach those lessons. Erin Weideman is a sought-after homeschool consultant, certified teacher, and nationally recognized speaker from San Diego. She says give yourself some grace as you face this new adventure.
As you start out and, you're, like I said, you're trying to juggle all of these things, is set some expectations. Call a family meeting and invite each individual family member to speak about what they would like this situation to be. You can use this time to review your family values and really allow those values and your faith to steady how you're going to move forward in this season. So it creates way less pushback. It gets every student in your classroom at home to buy in to the overarching theme, which is we're here to work together, we're here to be a family.
With the school year in question, Weideman advises parents to take this new virtual learning day by day.
So parents, I definitely want you to hold your schedule with an open hand and think of it more like an ebbing and flowing routine where you're going to put some parameters in place that you feel like will get you in a good rhythm, but then you're going to assess those rhythms daily and see what's not working and change it if necessary.
Additional resources are pouring out from homeschool experts and educators across the country right now. The Texas Homeschool Coalition has created a free website with actress and homeschool mom Sam Sorbo as a partner. She hopes it will provide encouragement.
I'm personally hopeful that this will convince a number of parents that they are actually adequate and equipped to teach their children. The website offers right now, we've got K-5 available for free. It's absolutely free. It's a full-on curriculum. It will guide your day. It's how to schedule your day, because I know there are a lot of parents who need that.
Some school districts are now considering summer school or starting the fall semester early to make up for lost learning. For now, Sorbo says she wants parents to know they are fully capable of successfully teaching their children.
We have to understand that God calls us to educate our children, but we are educated in a system that teaches us that we are inadequate. And that's why the number one pushback that I've experienced from parents is this idea, I couldn't, I don't know how. The reason that you feel that way is because that's what you were taught. You were taught that you can't do anything that you haven't been formally instructed on. And I'm here to tell you, not only can you, it's the most rewarding thing that you will do as a parent is to educate your children. And the relationship that you will be able to have with your children as a result of that is beyond your wildest dreams.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
Great information, Heather. Well, reunited, and it feels so good. The heartwarming story next on Faith Nation.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Tonight, coronavirus kept them apart, but tonight, a sweet reunion.
Yeah, hi, honey.
Happy birthday, honey.
In more than 63 years of marriage, Jerry and Beverly Lindell haven't spent much time apart. But fears of COVID-19 recently kept Jerry quarantined in a nursing home, spending weeks away from his wife. Well, just in time for Beverly's 84th birthday, the couple's daughter captured their sweet reunion. And as you saw there on tape, that moment was filled with emotional hugs and tears. Kind of gives you all the feels. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation. We hope to see you right here again tomorrow.